Hi, welcome to the world according to the thenasman. Today I have a very special friend.
Hello.
Hi, this is Gigi. She's my social media manager.
Hi.
So, have you noticed how recently there's been an improvement in quality, let's say, of my post? An evolution. She's responsible for it.
Yeah.
So, so we decided to do a live, and I'm like, hey, let's do a live together.
I'm like, no, please. So I'm forced to this, but it's okay. It's fine. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yes, exactly.
She was doing the self-prophecy thing. We talked about that with Dr. Faisal the last time.
Okay.
The self-fulfilling prophecy.
Unfortunately,
where
I
you're
didn't
like,
see
I'm
that
just
with
going
you.
to...
I was in Kenya, but
Alright.
I was busy doing other stuff, so I didn't get the chance to see it.
Okay,
Although
alright.
I uploaded it on YouTube.
That's okay. I mean, the relationship we have is built on trust and
Yeah, fellas, just do it.
All right. But the self-fulfilling prophecy part was you said you're just gonna be laughing all the time and stuff
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
the usual.
It's good. It's good. I get to take the credit
Sometimes.
and say
Not
that
all of the time.
I mean, you're amazing in everything, but I do guarantee a good time when you chat with me.
True, that's
Most
true.
of the time. But I do guarantee it.
ماشي حاضر.
So let's get this ball rolling. So other than your social media work and production work, there's Kenya, and you already threw it into that park over there.
Yeah.
And you've had a couple of opportunities recently to talk about your work in Kenya, and I want to hear more.
So this is a trap today. We're like waiting for sorry.
Yeah. It's
That's part of the
I mean, if you want to talk, I mean.
Okay, what do you want to know about Kenya?
So why do you go to Kenya? Right?
Okay.
And just start chatting about that, and then we're gonna jump to a bit of production and your other stuff, and then we're gonna jump to how you're evolving the thenasman, and then we'll go back to the children in Kenya.
Okay.
Or there's children in Kenya. That was a Freudian slip in the world of trapping people.
Yes.
So tell us, what do you do in Kenya?
So basically, I have a foundation in Kenya that you already know about, and
Do I?
المفروض we should be heading there sometime to do some work there. So basically, it's a foundation I started with around 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago.
All right.
Where it focuses on working with orphans and abandoned kids in different slums in Kenya between Nairobi and Nakuru.
All right, Nairobi and Nakuru.
So now we're working with around 600 kids.
600 kids in 5
Different
orphanages.
One of them has
In 2 cities.
400 kids. Yes.
Okay. All right. And I guess the $1 million question is why Africa? And I've seen you ask this over and over again. But
Yes. Why Africa? Africa has always has its own magic and beauty and all that kind of stuff. And I did live in Africa. I lived in Zimbabwe and Ivory Coast when I was young.
Okay.
And I have a lot of memories from those years. And I'm African, whether we
So which kind of African are you?
I'm from North Africa, so
Okay. All of it, or a specific place in North
I'm
Africa?
from Mafroud, from Tunisia,
All
but
right.
I've never lived there, so I don't really. I say I'm from Tunisia, but I don't say I'm Tunisian. But I'm
And
from.
since you're born in America, you can actually claim to be African American.
I never thought of that one.
You're welcome.
So basically, why Africa or why Kenya specifically is because I was part of a show, and we were filming there. We were filming actually an episode that was related to slums, and Kenya unfortunately has two of the largest.
Listen to this camera a little bit. Scoot.
Kenya has two of the largest slums in the world, which is Kibera and Madari. And in that show, we actually filmed in 5 different slums in Kenya. And one of the days, we filmed in a space where it had children. So it was called the place. I wouldn't call it an orphanage, but it was this space. And in Swahili, it was called Mukuru Futunaya, If I'm saying it right or wrong, I'm not sure. So futunaya means follow my steps. So basically this was the place or orphanage or whatever it is, and this was sewage, and there were like little stones that you had to tiptoe on for you to reach those kids, and they were standing there looking at us and giggling and saying Polisana, this is Kenya, like we're so sorry, this is Kenya, with a big fat smile on their faces.
TIA.
And then when we went in, I've never seen something like this in my life. Okay. And then they never saw people in my skin color. So they were approaching me, of course with all of my rings and bling bling stuff, and they would actually hold my hand and start scratching my hand, thinking that there is a different skin color. And I was just standing there, I'm like, okay, what's this? And then the next...
makeup really is a horrible problem.
Yeah. And then I wanted to break the ice, and I didn't know that we were going there, so I didn't have any like toys or anything with me. And then I remembered that I had a selfie stick in my bag, so I take out my selfie stick, and I was like, okay, let's take pictures and so on. And then the kids' reaction was very, very cold, and then the more I became conscious about it, I realized that the kids were approaching, and then they would look at the screen of my phone, and then they would look at each other, and then they would start touching their faces, and I realized that they've noticed that it's them. It was their first time to see themselves on the screen of my... Okay, every time I say this story, I get goosebumps. It was their first time to see themselves on the screen of my phone. And they just started singing and dancing and all that kind of stuff. And I was just on the floor, sobbing.
And your times in Africa really are the funnest parts. I mean, yes. Your goosebumps are sobbing. My goosebumps are thinking of those kids all like, always happy and twerking and stuff. And...
So yeah, after I finished the show, like almost 9 months later, I took a decision that I have to start something and go back there and do actual work on the ground. I started with Egypt, and then we ended up, like, I had to go back to Kenya, and it's been almost 3 years and a half right now.
Okay.
This foundation.
So you're running on 3 years after a 9-month break with your 600 plus kids in Kenya. It's a lot of kids to get after 9 months.
No, the kids, no. The 9 months was the production, or like after the show. So 6 months filming, and then there was those 3 months, Ramadan came, all that kind of stuff. And then I was actually in bed for like 3 months after I finished the show.
Okay.
Because of what I saw in Kenya and in the other countries. Because so basically we filmed in different countries, highlighting different humanitarian issues, and I didn't know the thenasman back then. I saw that coming.
Let's pause and do a little bit of shameless name dropping, because first we're going to mention this mysterious show that you keep mentioning. But
no.
Hold on. Pause.
Okay.
And then the next shameless name dropping or shameless advertisement will be, the issues of being stuck in bed for 3 months, because it's worth mentioning. Right?
Yes.
But first, shameless name drop. Go. What show were you working on that sent you all around the world to do all these things?
So basically, I was one of the producers of Khawatir for 6 years. I was part of 6 seasons. 5 of them I was mainly a fixer/producer here in the UAE, and then the last season I took the whole season from A to Z.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Small projects, tiny little things, stepping stones, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay. All right. So you came back in 3 months. 3 months you're in bed. What the hell does that mean?
I was actually going through depression. So I used to sleep up to 18 hours a day. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I wouldn't see anyone. And for me, coming back here to Dubai and facing first world problems and people and their issues, I'm like, I don't have time for that, and I can't even deal with that. No eating, no communication, nothing. I was like, I just wanted to be isolated, because I wasn't able to digest what I saw throughout the 6 months, because again, the filming didn't happen only in Kenya. There was Egypt, India, and we covered so many different humanitarian aspects and topics, and refugees and child labor and all those different topics, and it was very heavy on me, like on the emotional side, and I didn't know, like, my escape was always just lock myself and sleep forever. And because like especially when I'm in a situation and I'm not able to do something, I just get very agitated and I feel like I'm useless. So
Okay.
I ran away from that by sleeping and isolating myself and so on, until I was able to figure out, okay, what to do. And one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, yalla, my bag and to the airport.
All right. So basically, you took a couple of months to decide
To
that
digest what was,
you know
what
you
I
were
saw.
going to be a force for change. Let's say.
That wasn't something new. I was always doing that. So I've been doing philanthropy and that kind of work since I was 15. But it was never into like the scale that it was, or what I'm doing right now. Before it was all things here in UAE and little small projects. Like I never thought that I would be actually working with people in slums and orphanages, and it's something I didn't see myself doing, let's say 5 years ago. But I seeked it. Like I was interested, but I wasn't very sure where to head.
So, just out of curiosity, the first 3 months you had never met the thenasman, you know.
No, I met
but
the
why
thenasman.
would you mention that to begin with? Did you have another bunch of 3 months or any other thing? I mean, so. I mean, by now I hope at least the followers know that I'm a psychologist and a hypnotherapist. Otherwise, we have something to talk about.
After this.
But so the first 3 months, you really came out of it, and I don't know how you came out of it. So what part of that would you like to share? So do you just kind of open your eyes one day and go, you know, eureka, and then you were good again, or did you seek out any services? Did you have support? What do you have your own strategy? And I know that it's a cheat question. The answer is always yes, but please feel free to take the floor.
Well, this wasn't the first time I go through this kind of depression and so on. Like it has been there for a very long time. But I think that was one of the longest actually continuous periods. Like in the same year, after the first time I visited Kenya was like, let's say, I visited Kenya at the end of 2014.
Okay.
And then after I came back from Kenya, we had a break before we go to the next country. So I was in bed for that month. And then the only thing that got me moving was finishing the season. And I kept on telling myself, no, you have to like stay in one piece until the season finishes. You can't get sick, you can't run away, you can't like there's a bigger picture into that. So that kept me moving and motivated and all that kind of stuff. And then we were filming for 6 months almost continuously. And then the day we finished, I just collapsed again and everything was just coming back. And then after that, yeah, like I woke up one day and I'm like, okay, وبعدين until when?
Okay.
And as I said, like this whole idea of I don't like to be in a place where I feel like I'm useless or I'm not doing anything, and that has always been the motive. Whatever keeps me moving is the idea that I have to do something and move on and so on, and that's what usually like drags me out of bed or drags me out of my, let's say, depression kind of phases and so on.
Okay.
But there was never that kind of, how do I say it, consulting or way of actually dealing with it and healing it and getting over with that. No, it was just accumulated and so on until like...
Okay. But I'm not the first professional you've seen, am I?
No, as a psychologist, yes, you are.
As a psychologist, what else did you do?
No,
Please, do
I
share.
did see a lot of coaches. I did see a lot of mentors and life coaches and with like brackets.
Hey, you know, if they help, they help, right?
Well, يعني, and yeah, so I did see actually different people and all those kind of like healing sessions here and there, and yeah, but then it was just scratching things on the surface. Like it was never dealt from deep inside, and yeah, things were just accumulating and I never really dealt with them. Like every time, even when after I started my foundation, like every time I would go to Kenya and I come back, I would actually call it my cocoon. I would lock myself in a cocoon for like a week to 2 to 3.
Okay.
But it's been since August or November that hasn't really happened. Like I just came back 2 weeks ago and I've been like,
Should I cocoon? Should I?
Yes, no, back and forth. So yeah, because now things are dealt with in a different way. Like now, I deal with the emotions and let's say the traumas or whatever. Because every time I go back to Kenya, there's something that happens there, and every time there's a story that keeps me sleepless for like at least 2 to 3 nights, and it's usually just me and myself, and because the team or people who are around me are waiting for a solution. I was like, okay, G, what are we doing?
So, let's open up these brackets a little bit and talk about the team and talk about the logistics of it all, so we get a bit of a sense of the actual drama. Because you think kids in Africa and you think they have no problems other than the general hungry and no roof to be sheltered.
Yep.
But the range of kids you work with are from newlyborns and
until
up to
21, yeah, until the eldest girls are like 21, 22.
Okay, and so there's plenty of drama in the teenage years, let's say,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that's enough to keep you worrying. I mean, when they're younger, perhaps breaking bones and stuff.
There are different issues. Like you have from the kids that you receive and their stories and their trauma. And like, I deal with kids who have been saved from sex trafficking or abuse or sexual abuse. Or, like it's really like some deep, serious stuff that you go like, okay, how do we deal with this? Okay. So it's all ages with different stories and different aspects and different angles and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right. So and that's then and then we kind of take the fact that you have 2 cities and 5 houses.
Yes.
Let's say so they're split up between those, and for every house there's a mama.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about your mamas.
So basically, orphanages in Kenya and other countries are not really. How do I say it? Entities or organizations. They are literally those women. They decide to devote their lives and dedicate their life to take care of those kids. Mm-hmm. So the 5 orphanages that I work with, for example, don't have a single source of financial, let's say, income. And like on so many days, I would be messaged or called, and they would go like, "Oh, the kids, like we ran out of maize," and like again, their food is really really basic. It's maize and beans and very like food that is not even nutritious enough, and they would run out of that kind of food because again they don't have a single source of income, and that's where Play for Smile comes as much as we can to assist with those basic needs and trying to find solutions and ideas on how can we have those orphanages be sustainable and have their own kind of supplies there for them all of the time. So I'm grateful that now none of the orphanages runs out of food, at least.
Okay.
Like on so many days.
Out of curiosity, how did you achieve that? I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, please say you built farms or something like that. But on the ground, it's always different from in the brightness.
Not
of
yet,
minds,
not yet. But that's kind of a direction where we want to head. So, for example, last trip, Ishwari, Ishwari joined. So, in order to check things on the ground. So Ishwari is one of the team members, and she's into what is it called, inventing and creating like solutions through her smartness. So she went and saw the orphanages on the ground, and she came up with several ideas, from solar energy to what are they called? Some like different store farms that are done in
vertical farms.
Yes.
Okay.
And rooftop stuff, and so we are on that kind of path of creating permanent solutions where they reach a point where they are self-sustained. And but so far, so whenever there's shortage, it's covered, or we deal with it all of the time.
Okay. All right. Okay. And just to come back to the question, I finally get to do this to you.
No.
Stick to the point. Who are the moms? You've got 5 moms.
So we've got Mama Hannah.
Okay.
She's the mama of Shadow Mountain, which is an orphanage, which is the first orphanage I started working with in Nairobi,
Right.
and she has 80 kids. And then Mama Mercy, Mama Mercy has what is it called? Good Samaritan, and that home has 400 kids. They're like little rabbits.
Right.
And she started this orphanage 27 years ago, and until today, that place is like she receives kids almost on daily basis.
Okay.
And then we have Mama Irene. She takes care of a Goshen home. It has around 35 kids. And then Mama Nema, she takes care of Nema Center. It has another 35 kids. And we have Mama Jane.
Mama Jane.
I don't know what to call her. Mama
Muse.
Jane. She's something that's out of this planet. So Mama Jane takes care of around 35 to 40 kids who are unfortunately HIV positive. And for those who wonder, they usually get it from their moms, because people always like, their kids, how did they become HIV positive and all that kind of stuff?
In vitro.
And kids who are abused sexually or physically, or she receives some severe cases out of the time.
Okay.
And yeah, so those are the 5 mamas.
All right. Okay. So Mama Hannah, Mama Mercy, Mama
Jane, Irene, and
Mama
Nema.
Irene and Mama. Is Nema Nama or Nema like?
No, I don't think it's now, but ماشي.
All right. Okay.
People like Alia Galadari.
Hi, Alia, and all.
And all this.
All right. So, if you're still there, a small sound check, because we've been talking for a while
Yeah,
and
we
we have
haven't
no
seen-
clue if like people can hear us or not.
There, yeah. I don't know.
Clue enough.
Yes.
All right.
I can't. ما أعرفش أمسك إيدي. لازم I have to double check.
All right. We got a thumbs up. Thank
Yeah.
you. All right. So, you've got the 5 houses. You've got the number of kids. They have different problems. Sometimes they're basic problems like food sources and clothing. The shelter,
Education.
one of the education.
Why is education funny?
Education is funny because first world problems is exactly like
Yeah.
too much education. And
Okay.
everyone's all like, oh, we hate our education. And I'm like, yeah, I know, me too. But, it's important. Go to school. And then it's the shelter. And you do have a new shelter being built.
Yes.
You had shared about that at some stage. And that was a very successful and out of the blue sort of project that happened.
It's not really out of the blue. So basically, Play for Smiles now has 5 programs. So it's Teach Me, Feed Me, Shelter Me, Heal Me, and Play with Me.
Okay.
So that's part of the Shelter Me project, and the whole vision was from the beginning that those orphanages that are in slums will be at a certain stage moved from the slums to new places that are permanent. And because one of the things that they have to do is they actually pay rent for the places where they are living and so on.
Okay.
So Goshen Home unfortunately has one of the most challenging places or homes and so on. And yeah, luckily around a month ago we actually started the construction, and hopefully in the next few months they are moved out of the slum to a proper nice home. And yeah, the plan is to do this with all of the orphanages that we're working with.
Okay. All right.
But it is like really like the day we started the construction, I was like, ah!
And excited too.
Yeah, and I'm like, I want to go there. Like I'm here and seeing the pictures and the videos. I'm like, can I please be there? And the beautiful thing that even so I have a partner there. She takes care of things when I'm not around, and her and the mama and everyone is actually involved.
Your partner's name?
Duta.
I'm yet to meet Duta, but
Yes.
it will be soon, inshallah.
Yes,
All right.
inshallah. So she, her and the mama and the people who are involved in the home are actually are part of the building itself. So it's very, for me it's very exciting. Can I please be with them?
Okay. All right. I mean, I do remember your excitement at the building and And from my memory, I may be wrong, correct me, but the building that's being built is instead of another aluminum sheet building that used to be there, or what was the story?
Yes, so for Goshen Home's story, basically, a year and a half ago almost, my partner, she got to know about them. So they used to stay in a place, and the owner of the place, he kicked them out, and he's like, I need the space back. And they were actually on the streets for a couple of days until they reached Duta, and then she took action, and then they cleaned a landfill, a part of a landfill in one of the slums, and
Okay.
the setup now is actually aluminium sheets kind of structure, and it's horrible. Every time I'm there, I'm like, this is terrible, and so on. So it's been almost a year and a half where we're trying to find a solution and get those, like even the shower, and yeah, like every time I look at the pictures where I'm there, I just try to shut myself, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna think about it, but soon they'll be out from here. So yeah.
Okay. And that's a great achievement. I mean,
Yes.
I can only share in your excitement,
Yes.
and I had something to do with that. But back to the part where we talk more about me,
Yes.
right?
Let's go
so,
back.
there was a 3-month period. You are dealing with, whatever the fuck you deal with on a daily basis. I mean, life and the shit that happens in it.
Yeah.
And one of the first things you told me actually as feedback, and I will keep bringing this back over and over again, is ever since I met you, I've been crying.
So unfortunately, one of the things that was developed throughout this kind of journey is for me to focus again, because women are a little bit more emotional, and their emotions, and they get in the way, and sometimes the reactions are out of emotions, not rationality. Like there's some truth into that.
I mean, to the extent that it's a shared human quality.
Yeah.
And,
So it was very important for me to always be in that place where my decisions are not based on emotions, because sometimes such decisions can actually destroy things rather than actually elevate them or make them better, or whatever it is. And so slowly, every time I go and every time I'm there, I just get numb for a day or two. I don't sleep for a day or two, and then I just don't cry. Before, crying was easy, and I was able to do it, and all that kind of stuff. But it's been almost 2 years where I pretty much shut myself from that kind of act, and I just swallow it, and I'm like, okay, I have to be strong and independent and show that I'm strong and I can do things. Because again, there's a team and there are people, and it's like, if I'm down, everything, like the team will be down and things will not work and stuff. So I have to always be in that position where no, everything is alright, and we'll sort things out. So on the other hand, that wasn't very helpful, because everything was just kept and bottled inside, and I think that was leading to those breakdowns and shutting down and going to the cocoon phase, where I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to talk to anyone, and it was just piles of, let's say, anger and rage that was just building up.
Okay.
And sometimes, like, the silliest thing would just fire. Like, I was like, "Phew." And then after I
Why
calmed
is
down,
that cup over there?
boom. No, not to that extent, but like some little like weird stuff would actually irritate me, and I'm like, dude, I deal with like bigger stuff, and they don't irritate me. So I realized that it wasn't healthy for me, and I wasn't going to on a good, let's say, path, and I was actually burning out and reaching to spaces where I can't really think straight anymore, and that's where I'm like, okay, I have to do something about this. And I was already like in a stage where I didn't feel life coaches and mentors and all those kind of different people that I was seeing were what I needed. Like I wouldn't say I had enough, but like it wasn't working for me. I'm like, okay, but you still don't understand.
So this is this is something I deal with on a daily basis, and I am thankful that my training came in from hypnotherapy specifically for this point. I mean, you know, you will have people who will tell you things aren't working, and in hypnosis we're just like, in psychology.
Yeah, we've seen that several times. Like, no, you didn't hypnotize me. I've seen that several times.
It's like, you know, but what do you mean it didn't work, right? So what were you expecting, or what was missing from it? Because
as mentoring,
you know,
and life
when
coaching.
it comes to mentoring, life coaching, it doesn't matter who you go to. It is really the person on the one hand and the training on the other hand. But I mean, just to kind of help people wrap their minds around this, like, how did you know it wasn't working, or what was your thinking process at the time? Because when we met, it was through a social, mutual social friend, let's say, and I'm pretty sure from that meeting you didn't get, oh wow, he's a professional.
No, no, there was a story behind it, but
okay.
well, I was just in the same space. Like, okay, I would go and I see a life coach or a mentor or whatever, and even when I leave, I'm like, first of all, it's a bunch of do and don't, and
Okay.
for me that doesn't work. Knowing me, you know that I don't work that way.
Yeah. You're a polar responder, just like I am.
And then the fact that this not connection, but like every time I would be sitting with someone, I feel like they don't really know what am I talking about and where am I coming from, because they handle it from a very not shallow, but like shell kind of the surface. They would handle the surface, they wouldn't really go deep, and like they would deal with things like on just the shell kind of thing, and it wasn't working. Like I would still go back to my phone, I would still have that rage, I would still go to it was just the same spot over and over again.
Okay. And let's say August was the
Yeah, that
day,
was
or the
when
T equals 0.
I came back
sort
from
of.
that's when I came back from my August trip. So August is one of the trips.
Okay, all right. And of course, I mean, the shared friend is Al-Anud. She had logged in at some stage. If she's watching, hi Al-Anud, we love you,
we miss
and
you.
good luck with your master's. She's doing a master's in
Yeah.
applied positive psychology.
Bless her.
Apparently.
She's awesome.
So that was a fun meeting at the time, but let's kind of sort of skip forward to, we got together, eventually you found yourself in my office.
كده سبحان الله.
At some point
At
you
some
understood
point.
change had happened already, and you caught on.
The crying.
Right.
I woke up one day and I had tears on my pillow, and I'm like, what's going on? And I remembered that I had a session with you the day before. I'm like, and you actually messaged to check on me. He was like,
We're working on her sales pitch for my services.
He's like,
you know?
how are you? I'm just checking on you. Are you okay? And I'm like, no, my pillow is wet with my hot tears.
It's the small things in life, you know.
Yeah.
And then you began to handle my social media.
Yes.
And I really love that story. So please tell me again, how did that happen? Because here I am one day just randomly getting a call from a good friend who I just met, I guess. And,
It was actually an Instagram message at 2 a.m.
It was an Instagram message at 2 a.m. I called you back though. I found that fascinating the next morning.
Yeah, you're like, send me your number.
Yeah.
So basically, when we met, it was an awkward meeting because I was still back from Kenya and I was still like in that space, and you were just like asking those random questions, and you being
Like,
you,
hi, how are you? What
and
are
like
your daddy
and you're
issues?
eating a steak, and I'm like, who's this guy? And who are you? And why are you asking me those questions? And I came to say, Lanud, what are you doing here? And all that kind of stuff.
For all I know, I didn't know what I was doing there either. I was just having fun.
You were eating, you were enjoying your steak. And then, yeah, and like you were complaining about the food. I'm like, please no, I just came back from
First world
Kenya.
problems, right?
Yeah, I'm like...
Did I mention my traffic fines?
No, there was
by
like
then,
a
or
salad,
not
and
yet?
you're like, you weren't happy about something. And I'm like, seriously? And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. But at the same time, like I've noticed like there's an interesting character, and like there was humor, and there was like this intellectual kind of conversation that took place, and
Not to mention the spiffing good looks, you know what I mean?
yeah, whatever.
Right.
Anyways, and then a day or two later, I'm like, I don't know how I found your Instagram account, or I searched you. I don't even remember. And then I was like, what's this? It was a horrific moment when I found your Instagram account, and I'm like, and I was trying to find one single picture of you, and it was like all presentation slides, one after the other, that they were blurry aslan.
If you went back long enough, there were even like shirtless pics in the past. I was told like a lot of selfies means you're a narcissist.
And then like
so.
the first picture I found with you in a kandora and wearing a vest on top of the kandora, and it's flu. It's like blurry. And my immediate reaction was, hey, I'm sorry, I know that you don't know me, but
you need help.
but your Instagram is horrible, and it does not reflect the person that I saw the other day. And you're like, your response the next morning, and then after I sent it was like, I'm like, it's 2 a.m. Oops. And I'm like, okay, خلاص, whatever.
Okay.
And then the next morning you sent me a message, and you're like, yeah, I know, and it's been almost 5 years that I've been trying to get something done there, and I didn't go anywhere. And I'm like, okay, can I please help? And it all started.
Like, nah. And then you're like, please. And then I'm like, nah. And then you're like, please. I'm like, yeah, okay.
And it started from there.
All right. And it has been good. I mean, together we have done a couple of things. Part of it is getting me on
Live on weekly basis.
On these live videos
on
a weekly basis, or as close to as possible. Some production and editing help with my workbooks and workshops and events and
YouTube show.
YouTube shows. 2 YouTube shows so far.
Yes.
Right.
There's one coming up in Ramadan in Arabic, so. And it's interesting.
It's
I tell
so
you.
Interesting. إنني أتحدث باللغة العربية.
The amount of editing that was spent, and the words that we had to remove, and
Yeah. I speak Franco-Arabian sometimes. You know?
You created new words.
Yeah, I mean that's what language is all about.
We'll share the bloopers so you guys will know what am I talking about. Yeah.
So the production gig. So I'm not the only person you're working with, and I'm not going to ask you to share all your client base, I guess. But like, you know, you've done a bit with Khawatir. You've had a couple of startups that you've helped. You've had
YouTube and social media kind of content.
How did you come into that, basically? Because one of the talks I attended that you were giving was finding your place in art.
Okay.
You know, in the art scene, production zone. You know, please just continue speaking as soon as you spark.
So you want me to talk about did I get into production?
Yeah, sure. What do you do? What are you comfortable with? How did you get there? I know there's an interesting story behind it, where it was one of those roll
divine
of a dice
kind
thing.
of.
Yeah.
I've never thought I'd actually be in production. I've always wanted to do community service, and I've always knew that that's what I wanted to do. But because I was here and I had to study here and do university here, and like there were no options for community service and stuff, I ended up I did a couple of majors in university, from environmental science to marketing and finance, I think. No, MIS in marketing, and then to like, what am I doing here? And then I ended up graduating with a degree in PR from US. By the end of the day, I did my internship. I was like, no, this is totally not me. And I had this like crisis of, okay, what do I do? This is not what I want to do in life and all that kind of stuff. And then 6 months forward, I ended up in production, and my first project was actually halted with no experience ever.
Okay.
I was just thrown in the ocean, and that's how I started in 2008, and that's how I continued. And the minute I saw production from inside, I just fell in love, and this whole idea of for me, it's fascinating, this whole idea of having a thought in your mind and then you actually materialize it and you see it and people watch it, and like this whole idea of creating was very magical for me, and again, how you can actually travel the world just from the screen of your phone or TV or laptop or whatever was always something that's very captivating, and this whole idea how powerful it is and how it's actually a mean and a tool that you can influence people in a good way or in a bad way and so on. And that was partially my like philanthropy kind of angle of why I decided to take production as a career and be very specific with the projects that I do and the people that I work with, from this perspective that whatever I create, as much as I can, is something that's beneficial, if not for others, at least for me.
Okay.
Like, I've been struggling with corporate and advertisement and all that kind of production projects because, again, for me, at the end of the day, I always ask myself, what is it in it for me and or for others? And that was like, so throughout the last 10 years, my projects, I've been always very, very selective with the projects that I do. I like reality kind of projects, documentary films, working with intellectual people who have something that they want to say but they're not sure how to say it and how to deliver it. Creative people who have like this kind of, so it is kind of part of my philanthropy kind of persona to do production. There's always something that has to be delivered, or sometimes I have to. At the end of the day, there are kids in Africa that I have to feed, so I have to do those like projects that like are dreadful. I'm like, why am I doing this? But then I remember the kids. I remember Eddie and Omondi, and I'm like, oh, okay, for them.
Makes perfect sense.
But like kidogo, sometimes only once in a while. But yeah, I'm trying to see what can be done there.
Okay, all right. I had a specific question, but you mentioned Eddie, and I imagined that smiling, laughing face, and then like whatever that was just disappeared from my mind. But I've heard this from you, and I've certainly heard it from other people. Is that I am a wonderful client or a wonderful employer?
He's a very chilled client, sometimes to the limit that. Nasser, can you please sit and work? Please, abus idag. And he's like, dude, you're paying me money for this. I'm not doing it. This is money that you're...
I am, however, a very particular person, and there are certain things that I choose to do that are different, and I think perhaps that's one of the things that we draw bridges across. I mean, for someone in the production business, you're very picky about, projects and making money. For someone who, needs money to help people, you're quite picky, and that's okay. I mean, you have a personality, you have an outlook. It's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily fit the status quo, but it's not necessarily off the charts. It's not unheard of.
Yeah.
And you do it well.
That's right.
And perhaps, some of the things we had talked about was like start a new Instagram page, and I'm all like, nope, we just improved the old one. Because as far as I'm concerned, the evolution of thenasman is part of the project.
True.
It's an online coming out, let's say, and the beginning of a social life. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want people expecting me to always have something to say. I mean, other than the fact that every time I open my mouth, I have something to say. But that was one of those things. And then there's the website that we're working on
Yes.
together. Well, actually, you're doing it for me. Let's just make that clear.
I've been like trying to taunt him for the last 2 weeks to like sit down and get
In fact, most of this session was supposed to be talking about
the
that,
website
but
and the
since
content of the website.
We mentioned, the
Going
weekly
live.
Instagram. I'm
It's
like,
like,
let's do this.
let's open the camera.
Perhaps one of the things that I want to kind of highlight so that we can keep this sort of about what I do is what. So we talked about the expectations beforehand and the quote-unquote failed attempts with other professionals, let's say, and this isn't unheard of in the realm of behavioral, psychiatric, whatever you want to call it. I mean, some people are sensitive with the words, but problems, let's just say, in the realm of problems and getting guidance for your problems or getting over your problems, there was a specific journey and rather than tooting my own horn, why don't you like help me with some tooting? And let's make it relevant within so how do you know you're better, or how does it play out in your life, and maybe put in a bit about the techniques we used, because I keep saying this, or maybe I don't say it enough. I'm a four trick wonder, kind of like there's 4 specific things I do when I do them over and over again, and I might change the language patterns around it, but they're the things that work, and there's a couple of techniques.
Hypnotherapy, after yoga, and what was the other?
And sleep talk.
Sleep talk.
And even saying those doesn't actually cut it the way I want to cut it. In fact, I was going to talk about the sleep talk, and I will, and that's a specialized program for children, inshallah. And it utilizes hypnosis to bring about behavioral, emotional improvements, even intellectual improvements by some arguments, or at least by some case studies. But when it comes to hypnosis, or NLP, or psychotherapy, or the conversations I will have with people, and most people won't say this about their profession, but it literally is 4 specific techniques. Sometimes the conversations around them are different, but I have go-to techniques. There's the tapping, right? There's the gray room, or which about kind of thank you. So nice.
Just in front of the camera, by the way.
Just for the camera, yeah.
No, haram.
Where were we? So the EFT, and specifically the faster EFT, that was one of the most recent ones that I've had. Sleep talk is the other one. And then when it comes to hypnosis, it's the gray room. It's healing the inner child. And it's the rewind technique, and all of these 5 things really do the same thing. At the end of the day, they just help you reprocess a memory, whether that's a seen memory, a heard memory, or a felt memory. It doesn't matter, and the idea is it changes the way your body reacts to it.
Sure.
And when your body reacts differently, your mind follows on differently,
and therefore your life goes in a different pattern. And
it allows you to behave differently, and you may or you may not, but that's a highly technical way of describing it, and I'm sure I would have done a pre-talk and told you some of these things, but I do repeat this all the time. I'm a cut through the bullshit kind of guy. I'm like, I'll separate the getting to know you from working on your issues, and I'm happy to talk about them if you need to, but it's not a professional stance by any means. And so yes, by all means, please talk away. Tell me your opinion of what had happened, and a bit of just chat, I guess.
So basically, I would start with this whole idea of it's interesting and it's interesting how until today we still have this idea of a psychologist. Oh my god, I'm seeing a psychologist. Or this whole idea of I should like pick up the phone or go search for a psychologist and ask for advice and stuff. No, I would actually go to gurus and all those like okay, خليني ساكتة اليوم بلاش.
I mean, it's fine because I can always highlight my own opinions.
Different people have different things work for them, but like
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, but you have a lot of like voodoo kind of shit out there. Oops, sorry.
Shit is strategic hypnotic influence techniques. So for any of you with sensitive ears, I see. Okay, I don't see mine here.
What is it called? So this idea of being okay with this whole idea of seeing a psychologist or seeking a psychologist for help was
Do you
something.
mind coming back into this camera?
Sorry. Yes. Hey.
Hi.
Seeing a psychologist for advice and for helping you. You don't have to be crazy, or you don't have to be on the edge of life or committing suicide or whatever for you to see a psychologist. You can be just someone who's going through social anxiety, or as simple as you have a presentation and you don't know how to put that presentation together and you're not able to talk on stage like I do all of the time.
What? Haven't you met the thenasman yet?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this whole idea of it is okay to see a psychologist, and it is okay for us not to be okay, and it is okay for us to be vulnerable and to open that space and step out of it and seek professional advice or professional kind of help and so on. And that was an interesting journey for me, because for me, I never thought that I would actually knock on a psychologist's door, just because that's the culture we grow up in, and you know this, like people go like, no, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but
my
no.
answer is always like, wait,
We
that's a
all have
professional
that.
judgment to make.
We all have that, like the hair there. That's all of us like sit down and question her, like, am I sane? No, yes. Am I okay? And then so this whole idea of knocking on different doors, and I don't mind, like I'm a person that explores and experiments. It's just, it was something that I never thought that I would actually step into and start bringing my tribe. And I come with a tribe.
You do come with a tribe.
And trying to convince people, not convince, but like, okay, when someone seeks or knocks my door to like, oh, hey G, I'm stuck somewhere and what can I do and stuff. And it is something that I've been vouching for, is like, okay, here's a psychologist, or here's another one, or see a psychologist, like some people.
And I know my work is done because when you start doing some of the stuff I do, because I know that you're a guide for many people, and a lot of people call you for a nice chat.
Yes.
And the way I'm pushing this relationship
Their mom.
is so that, yeah, I mean, it's one thing introducing them to the thenasman, but it's a totally another thing just doing the work yourself. And
True.
Part of the Heal Me project has
Yes,
to do
with this, because I do believe that we can't move forward in life if we don't heal our own kind of wounds, emotional wounds and emotional kind of disorders, and all of us go through this, whether it's because of childhood, all sorts of different traumas. And that was like the one of the key elements in the last couple of months, where I got to deal with things that were from childhood, because again I lived in like 6 different countries in different continents with different people, and it was growing up was kind of challenging, and this idea of different languages and different cultures, and I always felt like alienated, and I didn't really, like, until today, like making like long-term friends is not something that does not really exist. Like it's just recently maybe.
Of course, it's the fault of your childhood and the environment. Nothing to do with your personality.
Yeah, well, it's a cumulative. It's your surrounding that creates whoever you are, or has a role in whoever you are, and all that kind of stuff. So we need to, like, we can't move forward if we don't heal that. And it's the same for me, for the kids in Kenya. Those kids, yes, okay, I'll provide them with food, shelter, take them out, play with them. But if I don't heal that kind of pain in them, and that trauma and all that, whatever difficulties they're faced emotionally, they're not going to be as okay as they should be. So it's something that has been a quite interesting journey, how I had to work on myself, therefore reflected on others, as I said, my tribe, whether it's friends or people that I work with and so on. And that would have not happened if I didn't step out and go like, okay, so what what's wrong with the psychologist, and it wasn't that bad. It was uncomfortable at so many times, especially when Nasser forces me to tap and stuff in public in a restaurant and
Forces you.
yes. And so many times I would find myself and I'm like, no.
I make an offer you cannot refuse. Let's just say it that way.
It's like, close your eyes. I'm like, can I say yes? No. I'm not even. But I'm grateful for that because being
You're
the
a polarity responder.
being the person.
If I was going to listen to you, oh my god.
We would have not gone anywhere.
It's like me trying to heal myself from my own problems. It's like,
Yeah, like
no.
if he gave me the chance, I would have always said no. I'm like, no. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for how, like, this whole journey helped me like reflect back. Like my life in my head was kind of a chaos, and now with this kind of work and all of the techniques that we've been doing, it kind of structured the chaos in my brain, so I'm able to focus on things in a different way. Things are actually working there. For a very long time I've been trying a lot of things and they haven't been working. Now things are actually working. Okay, the impatient kind of character in me will always be impatient, but when I sit down and reflect back, no, there is a big change that took part from we started the work until now. Like, at least for me, the biggest thing is I don't go to my cocoon as often, and most of the time, like the last encounter I had, I was about to go into my cocoon, and then you called, and I'm like, I didn't answer you, and then I paused, and I'm like, no, we've been working on this for a very long time, and I can't betray myself and put myself down, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call Nasser, and I call him and I start crying, and he's like, what's wrong? and we dealt with it immediately. Like before, it would have been something that would have stayed for months, maybe years, and khalas, it's gone, and the next. And so now every time I'm somewhere, I try as much as I can to keep the promise that I did for myself, that I'm gonna be better for myself and for others, because I wouldn't be able to help others if I don't help myself. And yeah. Okay. So thank you.
All right, thanks. That was a section of shameless advertisement. Come back into the camera. You're the worst advertisement ever.
Cool.
I'm just kidding. You're an amazing advertisement. Actually, your existence makes me happy and reminds me that I can be useful.
We're all useful when we decide, when we take action. But yeah, we're all useful.
So back to the team then, right? Play for Smiles. We've mentioned the kids, the different kinds of problems. We've mentioned your role and Duta as well, and the 5 mamas. And then we have the Play for Smiles team, who are your board of members, let's say, or you know, the social crew, whatever they may be. I mean,
they're the tribe.
The tribe. Yes, sorry.
Part of the tribe.
Part of the tribe. So tell us.
A question? Someone I can't see.
Is this a success story with a patient?
You can.
I don't have patients. I have clients. First of all. I mean, I do have patients, but I prefer to call them clients. And sure, this is a success story of a client. I mean. And a friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a coworker.
And a coworker. And a mama.
No.
And a production manager with holder. But really, it's just an attempt to fill out the Instagram with things. We have about 1 minute and 42 seconds.
Yeah, you were asking about the team. So basically...
So tell us about the tribe and the team.
Now, as I said, like I've been doing this kind of work for 18 years, and I reach a point where, okay, I can't keep on doing this on my own, especially that my goal is big. I have like this vision that I'm working towards. It's not only Kenya. There are other countries that are on the timeline, and a bigger number, like I'll share it one day, okay. of kids that I want to work with and all that kind of stuff. So I'm at a stage where I'm like, okay, I need a team, and I need a team that will fill in the gaps that, like, I'm not a superwoman and I'm not a superhero, and I can't do everything, like things that has to do like with medicine, or there are a lot of things that, okay, I'm good at things, I'm not good at other things. I had to put together a team that are from different professions. So we have the thenasman as our psychologist.
God help those children in Africa.
We have Dr. Kareem, we have Diana, we have Harsh, we have Ishwari, we have TJ, our awesome tech guy, and tech guru, I call him tech guru, and Muna.
That's
and
TJ, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and Muna. And they're all from different professions and backgrounds and experiences and amazing personalities and profiles. And I've mentioned Harsh, of course, and I've
Because
worked
you mentioned amazing
and
personalities.
and Dutta, and I've worked with each one of you like on different timelines and different projects and so on. And it only came natural where we all kind of collided together in order to take this to the next kind of phase or era, or I don't know what is it called and stuff, but like it's like this kind of base to start something.
All right, we're running the clock.
Tick, 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 tick,
Follow, pay for smiles.